All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland, where we already had it, as a trustee.
I want to
but
buy
respectfully
Greenland.
returned it back.
Canada is practically a part of the United States. When you come across statements like these in the news or on social media, what's your first reaction? You probably think, there's no way they're being serious. But when reports surface that military options were actually discussed within the White House, and when prominent voices in the US conservative circles start nodding in agreement, it's no longer just a meme. Why does the United States, specifically its more hawkish factions, view the entire American continent as their own personal backyard? To find the answer to this arrogant question, we need to peel back the layers of a 200-year-old diplomatic route, the Monroe Doctrine. In 1823, the fifth U.S. President, James Monroe, issued a historic declaration. The American continents are henceforth not to be considered as subjects for future colonization by any European powers. This is the famous Monroe Doctrine. We often assume the U.S. issued this out of a position of strength, but the truth is quite the opposite. At the time, the U.S. was a fragile, terrified young nation. Just 9 years earlier, in 1814, British troops had captured Washington, D.C., and literally torched the White House. The fear that the nation could collapse at any moment was etched into their bones. As Latin American colonies began declaring independence while Spain was weakened by the Napoleonic Wars, European monarchies started eyeing the region for recolonization. The US was breaking a cold sweat. If European bullies come back to the South, we're next. In the end, the Monroe Doctrine wasn't a roar of a predator. It was a desperate survival strategy telling Europe, stay away from our neighborhood. But why did the European powers listen to a weak, young nation? In reality, the master of the seas, the British Royal Navy, was standing right behind the US. Britain wanted free trade with Latin America and didn't want rivals like France or Germany moving in. So they quietly backed the American declaration. With this protection, the US began to escalate its rhetoric. They adopted a chilling ideology known as manifest destiny. This was the pseudo-religious belief that it was God's will for the United States to rule the entire continent. This served as a moral shield for the massacre of Native Americans and the seizure of their lands. Soon, this destiny set its sights south of the border. Now we come to the core of our story, the Banana Republic. Coined by O. Henry, the author of The Last Leaf, to mock the corrupt politics of Honduras, the term has come to symbolize countries that have pawned off their economy and soul to a foreign power. To Americans at the time, bananas were yellow gold. The problem was the biology of the banana. The commercial bananas we eat are seedless clones. One disease can wipe out an entire country's crop. To mitigate this risk, the United Fruit Company, a massive US conglomerate, bought up vast tracts of land across Central America for pennies. They monopolized railroads, ports, and telegram lines. Eventually, the company's revenue dwarfed the host nation's budget, turning governments into mere puppets of corporate interests. Their predation was beyond imagination. When the Honduran government tried to levy a tiny tax on bananas to pay off national debt, US businessman Sam Zemurray made a cold calculation. It'll be much cheaper to just swap out the president. He immediately hired a legendary mercenary named Lee Christmas to lead an armed coup. It worked. He installed a puppet president, and his tax rate went back down to zero. The case of Haiti was even more blatant. In 1914, under the pretext of instability, the U.S. sent Marines to the Haitian National Bank. They literally walked into the vault, took $500,000 worth of gold, and shipped it to New York. Their excuse? You can't manage this, so we'll hold on to it for you. It wasn't protection. It was a state-sponsored heist in broad daylight. The most tragic chapter unfolded in Guatemala in 1954. President Jacobo Arbenz, democratically elected, began a land reform program to return uncultivated land to the peasants. The United Fruit Company, which was sitting on half the country's land while leaving most of it fallow, screamed in protest. Enter the fixers for the corporation: U.S. Secretary of State John Foster Dulles and CIA Director Allen Dulles. Shockingly, both brothers had been corporate lawyers for the United Fruit Company before entering public office. The heads of U.S. diplomacy and intelligence treated the CIA like a private security firm for their former client. They branded Arbenz a communist, launched a psychological warfare campaign, and orchestrated a coup to topple the democracy. A young Argentine doctor, witnessing this carnage firsthand, decided then and there to pick up a gun against U.S. imperialism. His name? Che Guevara. The U.S. tried to assassinate Cuba's Fidel Castro over 600 times, using everything from poisoned wetsuits and exploding seashells to chemicals designed to make his beard fall out. Why such obsession? Because they could not tolerate a voice in their backyard that defied their interests. The Monroe Doctrine began as a shield for the weak, but as the U.S. grew, it mutated into a logic of domination, overthrowing regimes and looting resources for corporate profit. From the genocide of Native Americans to the annexation of Hawaii and the tragedy of the banana republics, these aren't isolated incidents. They are patterns of a predatory DNA embedded deep within U.S. foreign policy. The absurd comments we hear today about Greenland or Canada aren't just slips of the tongue. They are the resurfacing of a 200-year-old imperialist instinct. As long as this structure, where a superpower does whatever it wants simply because it wants to, persists, we must not forget the warnings of history. Thank you for watching.